Dr. Neeta, honey, how are you doing today? You look
Oh my
gorgeous.
gosh.
Oh, yeah.
Fabulous.
Mm.
Fabulous.
Well, you
So good
look
to be here.
fabulous.
Thank you.
Okay. You're one of my favorite people in the whole world. Like the way that you hold space for women, the way that you help to anchor us through the tough times, the transitions. And it kind of my big question for you is when I think of you, I think of audacious resilience. I think of bravery. And these are things that I think all of us are trying to embody, trying to find our way through it, especially in this crazy transition. And kind of what was that call to action for you, that call to arms that you wanted to help women navigate through their toughest moments?
I honestly, it comes back to this over and over again, but that sucked. Now what? To have, whether it's a relationship that's gone bad, or whether the fact that you wake up and you have like night sweats, or you realize you're in perimenopause, that sucked. Now what? We're not going to sit in the suck. We're going to say, all right, now what? What are we going to do about it? And I think one very pivotal moment for me was this idea that when I was in my darkest days and I was just crying, this was after I realized that I wasn't going to be married anymore. And that was a very huge intersection, a huge crossroads for me because I had to then be brave to reinvent myself, to step out into the uncomfortable, into the unknown, question everything that I thought I would ever know in my life, in with family, with certain friendships I had at the time, with my own business at the time. I was a cosmetic dentist at the time. Every single area in my life I had to re-question. And, the women that I meet today, the women that I support today, are asking these questions on a daily basis of, okay, what is going on with my body? What is going on with myself? Why am I feeling so emo? What is happening? Like you have this sense of this lack of control, especially for type A women who have always been in control. And then it like hits you fully. And for me, that sense of not hopelessness, but this sense of, wow, everything is outside of my control. I'm in full discomfort. I'm uncomfortable and I can't do anything about it. Well, yes, you can. We can surrender to what's happening. We can actually flow because, again, what we know is what we resist persists. We resist the discomfort. Guess what? You're going to get splashed and the waves are going to just keep crashing and crashing. But if you start to ride the wave, if you start to surrender and say, okay, this hurts, or wow, I'm feeling this heaviness, I am realizing that, all right, every time I go on the scale, I'm doing the same things, but something's shifted, something's changed. We can embrace ourselves and we can love ourselves through the thick, through the mud, through the chaos, through the uncertain times, through those periods of motherhood, to come out anew, to actually say, all right, I am reinventing myself. And I don't know what that looks like, but I'm going to pick that one thing, whatever that thing is. And for me, it was, my dark night of the soul. It was when I decided that, all right, I need to leave this marriage and find myself. And that took iterations and iterations, but it took starting new women's groups that I didn't even know they were women's groups, but I just started to create something out in my living room, which turned into beginning a nonprofit because I wanted to give back to the young girls in my life. And that became a nonprofit organization that started to champion confidence in women and girls. This was before I started my actual transition into my next career. I didn't know that I was going to be an author writing books. I just knew I'm going to pick one thing that I'm probably going to suck at, but it's going to give me that confidence because we have to claim that inner confidence back. And that's what gives us the resilience, because the resilience is, do we have the audacity to actually reclaim who we are becoming and becoming in this next chapter of who we're meant to be? Yes, we can. We just have to say yes. It's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be messy. It's going to be chaotic. But can I say yes to the first step? And then can I say yes to the second step? And then the third step? And then keep going.
I know there's a lot of women listening and thinking, how do I do the one thing? How do I even know what the one thing is? I'm just in it. Like you said, I think that first step, what is surrender? But then, like you said, pick the thing. Are we journaling? Are we just going deep inside ourselves? Maybe we're going to a Dr. Joe Dispenza meditation retreat. I don't know.
You might be. There's a concept that I really love, and I think it's so evident here in building your audacious resilience is you have to be able to make peace with your past. And what I'm referring to here is, how resiliency has a bounce to it. When we're resilient, we think strong and we think, okay, nothing is going to knock us down. We have to be brave to break. We have to be brave to break and break down. And often as women, we're penalized for going crazy with our emotions. We're penalized for having our emo times and they call women batshit crazy and all of these things because they're breaking down or they're screaming or they're yelling or they're losing their shit for the first time. Yet we should actually embrace that there are different variations of who we are and we have different flavors. And because we've been suppressed for so long that we're supposed to fit in this proverbial box of this good girl or the good wife or the good mother or the good friend or the good keep going and going and going, that's a lot of pressure. First, we've got to be able to build that bounce factor. We've got to be able to build, and there's four parts to it. So the first part is let's make peace with what didn't work out in the past. Whether it's that relationship, whether it's that health issue, whether it's the thing that we were doing for so long, but it's no longer working. And now we're getting frustrated. We're feeling hopeless. Let's grieve that part. Yes. Let's welcome the feelings. Let's accept where we are at, surrender to it. That's the first part. We already got that. But we have to forgive ourselves in the process. We have to forgive ourselves. Well, why did it take you so long? Or why couldn't you find this earlier, right? Find your books earlier. I think making peace with where we are at and meeting ourselves where we are at, because when we're ready, the teacher appears. Because when you're ready, all the doors open up. If you are ready to shift into the next chapter of who you are, then we say yes to, okay, all right, I get you. We say yes to good stress. And what do I mean by good stress? I mean, all right, say yes to the things that scare you. A couple years ago, when I turned 40, I wanted to do something completely crazy and new. I signed up for wakeboarding lessons. I grew up on the lake in Chicago, Lake Michigan. That was kind of home for me for various years of my life. And moving to Texas, I'm like, I'm such a water baby. Like, I love water and there's no beaches here. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to do something completely outside of my comfort zone. And I'd never been on a wakeboard before. I was going through some extreme postpartum anxiety with my daughter. I just had my daughter. I had a toddler. And I was just like, okay, I'm going to practice this idea of I'm going to suck at something new and I'm going to be I'm just going to go in, fear first. And I literally have videos and I hired a coach and she was getting the boat out and she's like, all right, put 2 feet on it's a wakeboard. It looks like a tiny little surfboard. And, you're holding the string,
the rope,
and you're
to pull
trying
up.
to, and you're to pull up and
I
she
never got
starts
on
the
it.
boat. You never got on it?
Never got on it.
She starts the boat and your feet, you're like in the water and you're like, well, it's like you're getting waterboarded in your face. And I'm like, this is why,
Well,
this
why
is the
do
worst
people
thing
do this?
somebody could do. I'm like going to drown before she pulls me up. And she said, Neeta, hold on. You're going to be okay and trust. And I said, okay. And so she went and she's like, trust it. Don't overthink it. And I didn't know what was going to happen. So literally she goes and I went and I like flew over the board. And I'm like, is this what you meant by that? I have no idea. So then she's like, and she was, of course, laughing. We did this. I'm not kidding you. 10 times before I could stand on that board. And it was not only are you getting slapped in the face, I had marks after. My husband's like, are you crazy? What are you doing? And I'm like, no, that was like the best exhilarating feeling because I can actually suck at something new. And then I can come home to my toddler son and say, you know what? Mama did some hard things. Was I scared? 1000%. I really thought, I'm like, what am I doing? The anxiety just like went up tenfold.
Oh, yeah.
But at the end of it, it was like, oh, I can laud myself and applaud myself for saying yes to doing the hard things. Guess what? I went back out there 2 weeks after that moment. I let go of the string. I was cruising. I got a little cocky and then I fell in the water, but got back up again. And then I finally got the hang of it. All this to say, I don't know if you want to start wakeboarding, but can we suck at something new? Can we become a beginner again and fall in love with the process? Because here's what happens in that moment. We're building micro moments of resilience. And for anybody who's watching this, your micro moment of resilience can be sitting in meditation for 60 seconds. Your micro moment of resilience can be putting on a sexy tune and just jiving to the beat of your own drum. Your audacious moment could be, all right, walking outside and caring what anybody else is thinking, but you're just dancing like nobody is watching, right? And it doesn't have to be an extreme thing like signing up for wakeboarding. It can just be these micro moments of shifts that you're saying yes to doing some hard things. You're saying yes to becoming a beginner again. And if that means saying yes to new friends groups, if that means saying yes to figuring out how to heal your gut, your body, your mind, how to put all of that together, that's why you're here. We are shifting into a new chapter of you. Hopefully, a more bold, audacious, resilient chapter of you that is wise beyond measure. And we don't claim that as much as I think we should, because it's such a birthright to be able to be in this era and stage of life because we've been through stuff. And so let's claim it. Let's own it.
Yeah. I hear that, girl. No, I'm serious though. I never got up on that board. I did try. And I think also in this time, be brave enough to figure out what you love, what brings you joy, and start doubling down on that. I feel there's so much of like obligation and I need to do this. I was getting my hair cut yesterday and a woman, she was in perimenopause and she was in it, like in it. And the type of care that she was getting was subpar at best. I call it lazy medicine. And it was no wonder she was struggling. And so I laid it out. I don't know if she was ready. I came with it.
You gave her the full script.
I was coaching while I was getting my hair washed and getting it cut. And the last thing she said before I kind of just laid out some of the non-negotiables that I thought would really move the needle for her, she's like, well, once my kids get into college, I'll start to look into this. And I thought that is how, and I mean, I'm a mama, you're a mama, and there's all the things to be doing as mamas. And we don't even have kids that are ready for college yet, for goodness sake. But it was, how often that is very much the through line for us,
Once my kids do this, or once my house is paid off, once my husband gets well enough so that I can take care of myself, once we keep pushing it. And it starts when we're younger. I feel like I saw a meme the other day. We tend to envision that our pursuit for chasing the life that we want to live is just pushed off. Once I get the high grades, graduate from a good high school and then go to college. And once I do that, I'm going to get married. And once I do that, I'm going to have my kid and buy that house. And then I'll be happy. But then you're just going to be delaying happiness and actually joy for the rest of your life. We then put our needs completely last. And of course, we're already doing that as a society, as women. We've done that for thousands of years. And it's why your work is beyond important, because not only are we understanding the wisdom of our bodies, but from an emotional aspect, to be able to cultivate what's lighting you up in this season, stage, and era. There's a reason why women are more creative when they are pregnant. There's a reason why during perimenopause, you are feeling all of the feels. If you have always suppressed your feels and put it under a rug and said, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm just going to go and do, instead of be and sit with it. There is reverence in the idea of being able to grieve this stage, the stage of where we were before, and call it whatever, the youth, call it whatever it is, our failed dreams, call it, I shoulda, woulda, coulda, I shoulda, woulda, coulda. Well, there's no need to grieve that anymore because you can start creating that life right now. I would love for you all to, at the end of this is a great exercise that I even share with my own students, is write three things that you would love to try if you weren't afraid. It could be wakeboarding. It could be sitting in a meditation retreat. It could be putting some 7-inch heels on and sensual dancing, pole dancing. I did that. But seeing how you feel, what if you weren't afraid? And this is not for anybody else. This is not for anybody else's to look for any admiration. This is for you. What could be your sacred practice? Not only that, I would love for you to write down, what is it that makes you come alive? And that could be, in my early days of motherhood with both kids, the only thing I had was, my chai. And this, Dr. Mariza, because I love chai. I would say, okay, I only have like 5 minutes. Kids are screaming in the back. One wants this, the other wants that, or someone having a tough morning. And I can say, okay, I can do all of those things, but I'm also going to pour the intention into how I'm going to make my cup of chai because that's how I fuel myself in the morning. I'm going to say, all right, we're going to have a great day and whatever affirmations, I'm going to bless it. I'm going to say, all right, make this nourish my body and give me strength and energy, whatever it is, but I'm going to pour it into making that for 5 minutes. That's my secret practice. And that lights me up. And it is such a difference when you have reverence to pour into something that pours into you. And for each of us, it's going to be different. But can we actually be brave to choose that? Because it's a choice. I can say, all right, I got to make my chai. And I got to get the kids' lunches ready and I got to get this person. Or I can say, okay, I'm going to take these 5 minutes and I'm going to tune everyone out. It's going to be great. I'm going to put some song in the background and whatever the chaos is ensuing for 5 minutes, I'm going to focus here because it lights me up.
I love that. It's even more profound than even doing what you like, doing the things that bring you joy, but something that you can put reverence to, that is very sacred to you. As you were speaking, I kind of thought about, because I love your book so much, That Sucked, Now What? And I thought, like, if there was ever a moment of embodiment, it's perimenopause,
So true.
I literally perimenopause, that sucked. Now what? Like, and we're stepping into our second act, ramping up into the second act. And some of you listening are very much in your second act. And I'm sure you're thinking, man, I wish I would have had this mindset of like, okay, I'm in it. And now what? I think this is really, if there was ever an opportunity, if you never gave yourself an opportunity, you're in perimenopause right now, and you didn't give yourself that opportunity in your 20s or in your 30s or when you became a mom, but now your body's like, it's time. The time is now. And you get to really step into that next version of you. I love the idea of embodying bravery, of really stepping into the things that we've been pushing and setting aside for so long. Neeta, how can we, as things start to come up, and I always say that I'm in my Queen of Hearts era, that off with our heads. I'm just
Yes.
chopping heads left
Oh,
and right
yes.
because
So
boundaries are
good.
coming up, right? This is a time where you're finally establishing boundaries. And so many women say, well, this is my time where I give 0 Fs. Like this, like the things I cared about, like I'm not caring about anymore because they weren't serving me. How do we embrace more of who we are? How do we embrace more of coming into ourselves when
Oof.
ourselves are really ready for it, where we are ready to let go of the things that have not served?
Oh, well, first, I mean, this is huge. We've got to be able to cut the cords. Cut the cords on even in the relationships in your life that aren't giving you value. It's giving like negative vibes. We've got to start cutting. And the thing is in when we get into perimenopause, you're questioning the relationships around you. Maybe you were more extroverted in your 30s or in your younger years, and now you're like, no, I savor the 3 friends that I can call and I can go to in my PJs and whatever is happening. I can call them in the middle of the night, or we can go on long walks and they will hear whatever I'm saying because I am fully supported and they see me for me. And you don't need a long list. Like, we already know some of the things that are non-negotiables. Like, we know that, all right, there's things when I go to the restaurant, I either like ice in my water or I don't. You have these non-negotiables. And when you are entering this now what era, you get to start claiming that. If you are one that has never voiced and opened with yoga and the Vedic system, it's your throat chakra. And many times when you are starting to open up yourself to new possibilities, hey, your now what era, your throat chakra, you just become unapologetic. You're using the F bombs more. You don't give a flying F of who is caring, who's watching, and why. It's because you've entered the stage of being wise and you have this wisdom. And now I like to say, as an elder, people are coming to you for that advice. People are coming to you for that wisdom. And so, can we claim it? Can we own it? And the best exercise for this is, what would you say to your younger self? If you have a daughter or, someone that looks up to you that are in their 20s, what advice would you give to them? And I like to say this because it's so easy to kind of embrace, oh man, I'm in it, I'm in the feels, and there's things happening every day that like are out of my control. Or we could claim it and say, yeah, because I'm here, I've arrived. You have arrived. And with that comes this sense of knowing what you're going to tolerate and what no longer you are going to tolerate. And that is a clear delineation of being able to not just set better boundaries, but increase the third part of building your bounce factor, your audacious resilience, is to increase your capacity to feel, your emotional capacity to feel, and feeling and sensing, all right, the good juju and energy and the people that are around you, and those who are like, ooh, I'm okay. I'm going to sit this one out. You guys go, you have a good time. I'm going to go put my bubble bath on, read a good book, watch Netflix, or just pour into myself because I don't need to go to that. I don't resonate with people at that gathering or at that party. I don't need to go. Whereas maybe in your 20s and 30s, you probably had FOMO. And now you just utilize that, you shift that back to yourself. So, can you increase your emotional capacity to honor your feelings, the good, the bad, the crazy, the duality of the hard and the soft, the duality of the skeptical and the loving, the duality of the compassionate, but also the fierce protectiveness that we have for our energy, for our boundaries, for the closest people in our life, mostly for ourselves.
I love that. A word that came in as well as you were speaking was that authenticity. Like we
Mm.
are more our authentic selves and we get to like really tap into that authenticity. Maybe we didn't really know who we truly were and we get to kind of figure that out in this journey.
Well, I was going to, say to add on to that, it's also this unapologetic acceptance of
Mm.
where you are at. You are so in this era, the stage and era of life, you're kind of like broken open. And if you haven't allowed yourself to feel, well, the mask is just kind of starting to melt off so that you can embrace your wholeness. You can embrace whoever you're stepping into, whoever you're becoming. And that takes bravery. I was just watching this the other day with there's something that came onto my feed, but someone was embracing their silver locks and they weren't gonna wear makeup anymore. And I'm sure, some of you have probably seen that. I love wearing makeup and all of the things and all the girly things, but there is this whole sense of women stepping into this era of owning their silver gray locks and owning the fact that they're, going no filter makeup free and embracing the fact that, we have, again, it's this era of wisdom, but it also takes some radical self acceptance and some radical, bold bravery to say, who am I becoming in this unapologetically? And not the thing is we're not judging ourselves for it and we're not judging anybody else for it. But gets to be, I think that in and of itself is a sacred practice to accept who you're becoming in the process. It's kind of like that caterpillar that takes shape. And if we know the metamorphosis of a caterpillar, then it goes in and then it sheds its skin and then it starts to bloom and blossom, the butterfly, the wise, wisdom of the butterfly.
I agree. Oh, yeah, I agree. Like, yeah, that is what we're stepping
We've
into.
got wings. We've got wings, everyone.
It's so true. I want to go back to community. You do such a beautiful job of cultivating community. And I think this is a time, I don't know if you knew this, but this is a time in this transition in perimenopause and even post-menopause where women feel their loneliest. They're the most isolated. I would love for you to speak into the why behind cultivating community for yourself and what that has done for you, even as a mama, because your kids are still young. I mean, you know what I'm saying? You
3 and
still have,
5.
3 of, I was gonna say you have 2, 5, and
Good
you know what
5.
I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like
5 and
basically two
under.
under 5. Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. And so you're still in it. And so talk to me a little bit about anchoring to community, what that has done for you and how we can cultivate more of that. I know there's a lot of women listening to this right now who are feeling very alone in this journey.
Yeah, and I think it's no wonder the stats are out there that women feel lonely during, perimenopause, postmenopause. It's because we haven't allowed ourselves to share what's going on underneath the hood. because we're just so used to saying, oh yeah, everything's fine, everything's great. Oh yeah, it's everyone's in school or it's so
Surface.
basic and surface level conversations. Why? Because we're so afraid of what will people think if they know. Well, how do you know that Jenny across the street isn't going through the same thing, feeling the same things exactly as you? Because guess what? Chances are she probably is. And the fact that we're either waiting to be invited to the thing. We are afraid that either nobody's going to get us. We're afraid that if I invite somebody, if I extend something, I'm going to just get rejected. We are more afraid of rejection, guaranteed. And which is why we don't reach out, which is why. I mean, it's one of the reasons why we look at Instagram, Facebook, you see kind of people hanging out and you're like, wow, how come I don't have that? How come they didn't invite me? Then it perpetuates the loneliness. Well, I say go out and create that for yourself. Go out and create your soul support posse. I say, what's a soul support posse? Well, it's your SSP is that coven. It can be two people, one people. I would say no more than 5 or 6, maybe. Some of you have more than that. But this is a select group of people that you trust, that they trust you, that you accept wholeheartedly, that you are cheering for their highest good, their greatest expansion. And if you're watching this and you're like, how do I even do that? I don't even know. I don't get it. I don't get what you're talking about. You got to go first. Here's what I mean by that. If you are looking for, you can just make a list of all of the criteria that you'd want in a friendship. And some people have never thought about this before. I mean, that's why
And
some
maybe we
people
made
call
a
me.
list for a partner. Maybe.
Yeah, they made a list for a partner years ago, 20, 30 years ago. They've
Mm-hmm.
never made a list of the kinds of friendships or girl friendships that they'd want to have. And that's so important to have that coven. And maybe it's, all right, I want somebody who's loyal. I want somebody that's funny. I want somebody that's just listens, that's accepting, that's fun. Make
That's
your
safe. That
list
holds space.
that
I can
that
be
holds
me.
space.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we ask, okay, well, what connections have I made or do I have in my day to day that I see that I could probably cultivate more of? And then you're like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, Susie from the school meetings. She's always so smiley at drop off or pick up. And yeah, we always say that we're going to like get together, but we don't. That's your reason to say, hey, reach out. I would love for you to reach out to 1 to 2 people that you'd love to get to know. I implemented this when we moved to, Austin, Texas, 3 years ago, actually almost 4. And it was during, COVID time. And of course, people weren't seeing each other and we don't have our families are in different parts of the world. And so we're starting from scratch in this new city. We knew other people and other families that were moving, but it's not like they were our closest friends. We just knew them. To be able to start anew in a place where you don't know anyone, it's scary, it's daunting. You've got to be able to go first. And so, one of the things that I set out on doing was, all right, I'm going to text 2 new people every day. And I'm going to meet at least 1 or 2 of them for coffee, for walk, for going around the block, have them come over, whatever. And kid you not, our community, this is just one of the hacks that we've been able to do because we want our kids to be surrounded by other like-minded people and other friends because that's what my parents did when I was growing up. And I know my husband's the same way. And culturally, that's kind of ingrained in us, but we needed to do that for ourselves. And then it starts small. You probably will get rejected in the beginning. Number 1, don't be afraid of rejection. Number 2, don't stop reaching out because some people say, well, Neeta, I tried and they didn't send me a text message back. Or I don't think they want to hang out. I don't know if they're probably not interested. Well, how many times did you send them a message? Well, just once or twice. Then they give up. But if you were pursuing that guy or girl, you probably weren't going to give up that fast. We have to be able to then seek out some of those other areas. Okay, do you like to go to yoga? Well, go to that yoga studio, hang out, see, can you volunteer at the school place? We've got to be able to put ourselves in uncomfortable places, situations, but also where we can meet like-minded people who we can then cultivate our soul support posse.
I love this. Another thing that I recommend too, if it's a friend, you guys have just fallen out of touch and they feel like they're still in alignment with where you're at. And I know life happens and people drift apart on accident, whether you guys moved or whatever it may be. Like, be the person, even if it's been 10 years, 15 years, whatever it is, Be the person who sends a voice memo. Be the person who slides into those DMs. I don't know what you got to do, like, but be that person. And I promise you never know. I mean, the worst that can happen is that they don't respond, and but at the very least, I always say, be that person who reaches back out, see how they're doing. It's been so long. I miss you. What's up with you? And open the door.
And I guarantee, and I have just a tiny little story around this. A couple years ago, I lost touch with, one of my dearest friends from, I mean, we grew up together and, she had babies, I had babies, and, she just popped into my mind. And I was like, wow, I wonder how she's doing. I mean, you just can't make this up. But I literally, you go down the Facebook rabbit hole and you're like, well, how is she doing? And so I sent her a message. She's like, oh my gosh, didn't reply, saw the message. And so you see somebody's read the message, they didn't reply back. And I was like, oh man, okay, well, I mean, all right, maybe she looked at it and didn't reach back out, or maybe she was busy, or maybe she just doesn't want to stay connected. But I wrote her this long thing and I'm like, I just remember how, we used to hang out after school and do all these things. And I loved how your family was. And I just shared something that I really loved about us growing up together. And we had lost touch for, I don't know, at 10 years at least, maybe even more. And she had seen the message and, of course, didn't reply back. And then basically a month goes by and, not expecting anything, but I get a message from her and she's like, OMG, thank you so much. I was just going through, pretty much a dark night of the soul. She had a death in the family and she had thought of me because I had gone through, lots of losses when we were kind of together in school. And she's like, I just so remembered how you handled it. And your message couldn't have come at a more right time. It was like sent from the universe. And she's like, I was just so touched by your message, but I was also going through the grieving process of losing somebody that I just needed time and space. And thank you so much for reaching out. Like when you're back in town, I would love to connect. It was like, oh, I could have made a meaning that, all right, maybe she doesn't want to hang out. Maybe she doesn't want to keep a contact, or maybe she's just moved on. And then that message to her was the most meaningful thing that had happened to her in a long time because she was going through this big life transition. We just don't know what other people are going through. And the fact that you feel that you might be lonely during this perimenopause season, other people might be feeling that as well. And there's so much, and that's why I love your work, Dr. Mariza, because you are basically removing the stigma that so many people have of, I don't really know, I don't want to talk to people about this. How do I talk to people about this? Like there's a lot of shame and there's a lot of guilt for when women are in this season. So of course they're going to, keep to themselves. Of course they're going to try to hide behind, the doors. No, this is where we let people in. This is where we start having our heart on our sleeve and start to say, hey, I'd love to connect. I'd love to, all it is, two people, either text them, outreach, we are stronger in numbers and we get to create the most juicy, deep, connected relationships when we sometimes have to go first. And that means maybe braving the way we thought relationships were in our 20s and 30s to different version of that now entering this season and stage and era because we have more wisdom and we're willing to do some really challenging things. And sometimes, and most often, they are the ones that reap the most benefits because it's coming from a place of love and it's coming from a place of curiosity and awe and this idea that, hey, I really genuinely would like to get to know you. And I think, you have great energy when I see you, etc. I have a whole list that is coming to mind that I want to be able to share to your audience. If you're curious about it, it'll be a free gift. It's how to create your own soul support posse. And I think that guide would be so beneficial especially when we're navigating feelings of loneliness and feelings of, is anybody going to get me? Am I going to be judged? And don't wait for the invitation, create your own. And that's the biggest gift.
That's what I'm talking about. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing the story too. Profound. I mean, honestly, I'm having you on this so I could just catch up with you.
I know. I know this is when we catch up, but you're one of those people where I will, send a voice note or text and we were both having kids around the same time. And, motherhood is tough no matter what season and stage you're at. And to be able to not take it personally, when your mom friends don't send a message back, it might be 2 to 3 days, weeks, months. But then if they're not messaging back, send them another message to say, bumping up, just thought of you. I can't tell you the number of people that take it to heart if they don't get a message back right away. And we have to be able to give people kindness and reverence and compassion that they're probably going through something too.
I have a quick little story. Well, one, and I knew you were like this over the summer. I knew you were on the holiday. You were doing your thing in Europe. And I was like, hey, if it was even just commenting on a story,
Yeah.
knowing that you were going to see that in again, sliding into your DMs, girl, over the summer and just letting you know, like, hey, I see you. And I'm so excited. We're going to be connecting in a couple of months. Something that happened to one of my best friends. I actually found out at the Dr. Joe Dispenza retreat back in December or back in Denver in July. This is a friend who was literally at my house in September last year and had come to visit me a couple of times. And we've been through thick and thin for 20 years. It's one of those friends, like, you can pick up wherever you're at. And I texted her a couple times this year and I didn't hear back and I didn't think anything of it. Cause again, I get life and things are happening. And she actually happened to talk to my husband earlier this spring. And so I knew she was alive. Like I was like, I know she's out there somewhere. I'm at the Dr. Joe Dispenza event and I get a text message from her husband and she has been diagnosed with Lewy body dementia and it's progressed extremely fast, like faster than anyone could possibly imagine. And I haven't even talked to her yet. It's been since this is now we're almost September right now when we're talking and I haven't heard from her. He's giving us updates and they're pretty intense. There's some wins, but every week I am sending her a voice memo. I don't want to overwhelm her system, but I'm just reaching out every week and sending her a voice memo. I want to, how can I show up for her? How can I know that I'm there? And I'll be visiting very soon. Local visitors, but they're working out right now, like local visitors, but they're working out when other people can come and visit. Again, you never know what's going on. And it's just about continuing to do that, just reaching out and seeing what's going on with people. And so even though I don't have an expectation of hearing from her, I am committed to reaching and just letting her know that I am constantly thinking about her and she is in my heart and I'm sending her a lot of healing energy. And especially as we start to navigate this time of midlife where parents are beginning to get sick, or maybe for me, it's my sister, she's sick a lot and you're taking care of kids at the same time. But you could also be having friends that are just really going through it and not even knowing to even just send out that voice message just from the come through of like, I just want to let them know that I'm here, I think is really profound and powerful as well.
It's huge. And this is where we lean on each other. And, we get to do life together if we allow ourselves to. I mean, it's just the most beautiful thing. And I'm so glad that you shared that because I think we just don't know what other people are going through. And that message, that text message, that voice note, that, smile in the stories, like however, and these are kind of tiny little hacks that we're giving you. And it seems mundane and easy, but why aren't we doing it? We're not doing it. We're waiting for the other to go first. And so here, I hope from you take from this conversation, it's to be brave, to go first, to be brave, to maybe cultivate that soul support posse, to be brave, to reach out, to be brave, to shift into who you are becoming next, because this is that beautiful era and it needs to be embraced in all of the amazing, fun, messy, chaotic ways that may be sovereign and sacred to you.
We're going to get that as a freebie. I just love it. I think like that I immediately got goosebumps. I was like, oh my gosh, we all need this kind of guide to help guide us in this direction of creating our soul posse. And then also, I know you have a little self-care guide, a little chai self-care guide. Can you share that as well?
Absolutely. Okay. So it is a 12-month self-care guide. And, in order to pour into others, we've got to be able to pour into ourselves, literally and figuratively. I love chai and I've come up with 12 different chai tonics that are honestly my favorite, not only for warming and soothing and nurturing our nervous systems, but there's also an affirmation monthly. There's also an action monthly. And, some of the months do have things to do with other people to create that community effect. And so, yes, so I'm going to be giving that away as well for
Yay!
free.
I love it. All right, Neeta, honey, where would you love to plug in? Obviously, the Brave Table podcast is a great place, but where
Oh,
else? Where
yes.
else?
Yes. We talk about braving all kinds of things in your life, relationship, health, and action steps in your life. And then just on Instagram, I'm on TikTok, I'm on YouTube as well, and at Neeta Bhushan.
Thank you, love. It was such a pleasure. Oh, it was so yummy. I so appreciate you.
So good. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for watching. Now, if you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up and share your thoughts in the comments. And if you are ready to learn more about perimenopause and how to navigate with a lot of ease and grace, Be sure to subscribe to this channel so that you can join our community. Don't forget to share this video with someone that you love, that you know is navigating the perimenopause journey as well, because they deserve to feel their best too. See you in the next video.